Welcome to Your Incredible Transformation. My name is Sandy, and today I'm going into an absolutely awesome scientific breakthrough in aging. It is possibly the biggest medical breakthrough ever when it concerns aging. Now, did you know that scientists know what causes us to age? We have what's called an aging clock. And scientists now can measure that, and they can figure out how long you're going to live by measuring what's called your telomeres. They are your aging clock. So what are they? Well, if you haven't seen any of my previous videos, here's a telomere. Telomeres are on the end of your chromosomes, which are in your DNA, which are in your cells. What happens is your chromosomes are made up of what's called bases. They're like little beads. They're about 100 million bases long. And each telomere is about 15,000 bases long. That is when you are conceived. They get shorter. When you are born, they're about 10,000 bases long. And then when you die of old age, your telomeres are about 5,000 bases. That's because the breakdown of the telomeres cause your cells to break down because they can no longer protect themselves. And you die of old age. And this is what causes us to get weirder as we get older as far as our health goes, because our telomeres get shorter. Is there anything we can do about this? Well, there are certain things that cause us to age more quickly, and we can do things about that. Things like stress, things like poor diet, things like toxins, and we can do stuff about them. They cause inflammation, they cause free radicals, and these things attack our telomeres and make them shorter and damage them. And there's things we can do, right? We can exercise, we can do stress reduction, we can change the way we eat, take the toxins out of our diet, we can lose weight. All those things will help with telomere shortening. But there's another thing that happens that there's nothing we can do about as of right now. Well, they're working on it. And that's called natural telomere shortening. And natural telomere shortening occurs because every time our cells reproduce, we lose a base off the end of our telomere. Nothing you can do about it. Doesn't matter if you eat right, whatever, you can't do anything about it. But science is slowly figuring out what we can do. And they did this by first asking the question, what about animals that show no signs of aging? What do they do, or what's in their genes that keep them from aging? Things like tortoises and lobsters, certain whales, certain fish, they show no signs of aging. And why is that? Well, they found that they have what's called a telomerase enzyme in their bodies, which every single time your cell replicates, you lose that base, but the telomerase gene comes along and puts the base back on. So therefore, it slows their aging process and they show no signs of aging. And then science goes, well, if there's telomerase in these animals, do humans have telomerase? And the question came up, well, what about our reproductive cells? Why are we born with our bases so long? Because we get our reproductive cells, our egg and our sperm, right, from our parents. They got them from their parents. They got them from their parents, and it just went on and on and on. And they checked, and they found out that our cells, our reproductive cells, actually have the telomerase enzyme in them. It's turned on. So every single time we lose a base because of the reproduction of the cell, the telomerase comes on and they put that base back on, which stops the aging process in our reproductive cells. And here is what it looks like. We have what's called a telomerase gene inside our reproductive cells, and there it is. But we also have what's called a repressor element. Well, in our reproductive genes, in our reproductive cells, this repressor element is knocked off. The gene then will produce the telomerase and it flows. So our reproductive cells don't get older. But In our other cells, there's what's called a repressor on it. So the telomerase doesn't flow. So every time our cells reproduce, that telomere gets knocked off and it never comes back because there's no telomerase. Now, if we can knock off that repressor, then that telomerase will flow in all of our cells. And they made giant strides in this in the last few years. A man named Dr. Bill Andrews, he has a lab, and his only purpose is to see if there's any activity, telomerase activity, in all these samples. Now, he started for 12 years. What he did was he worked with synthetics because he thought that if there's something in nature that works to produce the telomerase enzyme, and it is already there, and it would already be out there, and we'd already be eating it. But what was going on was his synthetics were too poisonous, couldn't be used. He was almost ready to give up until he partnered with a man called John Anderson. John Anderson is a genius when it comes to any kind of botanicals. And he started giving samples to Dr. Andrews, and Dr. Andrews found that natural products do induce telomerase production. So they got together and they came up with a product. It's called Product B isogenesis. Now, I can't tell you what it does because the research is not completely out there, but we know that it does protect telomeres. That much we know. It's an all-natural product. And the reason it works when the natural plant doesn't work so much is because of the way John Anderson extracts everything out of these plants. And I don't know how that works, but I know it's the extraction process. And that is why in a test tube, these products will induce telomerase production and protect your telomeres. So if this is something you're interested in, please download my free ebook. It's called 4 Keys to Better Living. It goes into all the reasons why we have shorter telomeres. And the link for it is in the post. And also, if you got any value from this, I wish you'd like, share, or put a comment in the post below.